Hey everybody, I think we're live, Srini. So just check the attendance here. We've got a number of folks, which is awesome. Um, so we'll just get started. So hello everybody, welcome to the final session in our series of live demos, walking through the ways that our customers are using our product to manage some of their most common use cases. And today, as you see on the slide here, we are digging into how Ordr empowers our customers to accelerate incident response. I am joined by Srinivas Lok, our amazing Vice President of Product Management. Srini, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day, and thank you for joining us today.
Okay, fantastic. So before we get started, I have a couple logistical items. One is, yes, this session will be recorded, so we'll be sending it out, and you can come back and find different things as you see fit. And the second thing is on your dashboard, there should be a Q&A box on your right-hand side. So put in any questions that you have throughout the session, and I will be monitoring throughout. And then we have a Q&A session at the very, very end. So on that note, let me just go to my next slide here. I already kind of went through this, but quick recap. We've been doing a number of live demos with folks at Ordr, including Srini. So we did an asset intelligence one, how we take action, the overview. We looked at security and coverage gaps. And then last time, we talked about vulnerability management, but really about prioritization. And today, Srini will be going through how we do incident response, how our customers do that. Before we get into the demo, I just got 3 quick slides I'll go through. So the first one is kind of just to zoom back a little bit. In terms of incident response, there are 2 things that really helps us kind of frame it for all of us. And the first one is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which I believe was refreshed as a 2.0 maybe earlier last year, about a year ago. And there are kind of 6 core functions, and govern, I believe, is the new one from last year. That's all about rules, responsibilities, processes, the ways you can continuously improve. Then there are the other sections, identify, that's like understanding your inventory, the risks, but also the threat intelligence, and then kind of your attack surface and exposure in general. Protect, which is about kind of security hygiene and closing those gaps, which some of our other sessions gone into, but also like controls over access, with things like segmentation. Detect is finding anomalies and threats in real time. We've got response, which is then kind of orchestrating with the SOC and the security team, and then also kind of automating the workflow to make sure that you are getting and containing the threat really, really quickly. And then recover, obviously, kind of getting things back up and understanding what went wrong. So the way we do things here at Ordr, and some of you guys may already know, is we've got a number of different ways to collect data to give you that foundational intelligence that you need. And so the first part on the bottom is we've got a huge ecosystem, more than 200 integrations, pulling in data from all the different tools that you already have a lot of solid intelligence with. So it could be something like CrowdStrike from an EDR perspective. It could be maybe you have Qualys as your vulnerability scanner. Maybe you've got something like Microsoft Intune to manage your devices. All these different things have really good data points, but they're fragmented. It takes a lot of time to put them together, especially in an incident response perspective. So we put all that together. And then the 2 things that we do to really add and enhance on that is we've got a proprietary methods in Ordr discovery, looking at SNMP, scans, queries, NetFlow data, et cetera, to find the other devices that probably aren't managed or enrolled in your various systems and isn't in your API. We also look at deep packet inspection, looking at metadata to really enrich the profiling, all the different insights per device. And we also look at, in general, the network in terms of communications and behaviors to baseline and find the anomalies. And that really helps us, as you see at the top, whether it's IT devices, medical devices, IoT, OT, all of those assets across your entire enterprise, you have all the data that you need in a single place. This one I'll just blaze through. It's a kind of a double click on the NIST framework. It's a separate thing that NIST has put together, which is the incident response lifecycle, I believe from SP 800-61. And Srini is going to touch upon a lot of that. So the preparation, that could be inventory, understanding your risk scores and stuff like that. And then that cycle in the middle, you got to be able to precisely detect what's going on. And then rapidly, whether it's enabling your SOC, maybe kind of pushing data into your SIM or your SOAR, but also automating the entire actions across your infrastructure to contain and eradicate. And so that's a cycle. And at the end, you need all the data you need that's required to understand in the post-incident, what was the blast radius, what were the different weak points, and that goes back to preparation. And so that's the whole cycle. So on that note, I've talked enough. Srini, I'm going to pass it over to you to share your screen and dive into our product.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Should take a second here. Yep, perfect. I can see everything clear.
So, stepping back for a second, right? Incident response is all about getting the information, getting the right set of information. What David showed within the screen is how we collect devices from the network. And what is important is the number one goal of Order is to have no blind spots in the network, right? We not only rely on devices that are managed through APIs, but we have some of our own organic discovery mechanisms, right? There are printers in your network. There are security cameras in your network. There are Apple devices, IoT devices in your network, the conference room iPads. They don't respond to certain protocols, or they're not managed through any of the API-based infrastructure. So the goal is to discover every device and have enough context around it. So what we do within this product is we collect the data from multiple sources and we deduplicate, and that we have spoken about multiple times, and we would be more than happy to do it in person if you want to talk again. We deduplicate and we compress the data. Why is it important, right? Unless you deduplicate, unless you compress the data, you are not looking at an accuracy. When you talk about a data analytics and security management and attack surface, you want to make sure that you focus on accuracy. So at this point of time, I wanted to highlight 15.6K unique devices that we have discovered in the network. And I want to talk about what exactly are we doing? For example, let's look for laptops. And some of the laptops that we have discovered is Dell laptops. So if I click on any of the Dell laptops, we have like 10 of these devices. And what's important is when you want to talk about, it's not the classification that is important. What is important is there are researchers in place when somebody says, okay, you want to know what exactly this device is, or what exactly who owns this particular set of devices. It takes a longer time to focus on incident response when you want to look at okay, who owns this particular device. There are researchers that says at times it takes 6 hours to figure out who owns the device. At times it takes a couple of hours to figure out where this device is in the network if you don't have everything at one place. So what we are giving within this product is to make sure that we collate the information from multiple sources and we can give you that set of information in one place. On a fingertip, you can simply say, I can go look at this MAC address, or I can look at this device, and I can search in OrdrAI to start with and say, okay, show me this device in your network. And I can simply click on that device and I can figure out who owns this, what is the business context of it, where is this device located on, and where is it currently in the network, and when was it last seen. This is the first set of information that you wanted to know for incident response. You know what the device is, you know what it is doing in the network, you know where that device is, you know who owns that particular device. So this is the level of information that you want to start out with, how you want to do it. That is the number one goal, right? That's exactly what we are talking about next. That's more of a discover all devices in your network and make sure that you have this context for all of these devices in your network. That's the number one thing. But once we get that information, what are we going to do with it, right? There are multiple ways that we can understand what those cyber risks are. One of the most important things that we do is we also look at security control gaps and vulnerabilities, and we prioritize the data based on what we want to do. So, but why is it important to understand security gaps, right? It's again, this is proactive security that we are talking about. To understand the proactive and reactive security, you need to know what is the state of that particular device is. And one of the things that we do within the system is we have classification. We have close to 100 million devices in your data lake, and we have focused on classification for the longest period of time. And the classification is important because it will give you exactly the security gaps. Instead of saying that if the device has a McAfee agent, it should also have a CrowdStrike agent, that's not how we look at it. We say that this device is a workstation or a laptop and it should have an EDR agent. This device is a mobile device or a laptop, it should have an MDM agent. So instead of going back and figuring it out on based on the API infrastructure, we are trying to figure out discover devices and have classification as that boundary. And here, let's say if I wanted to say, okay, how many devices are do not have EDR, and I can simply look for this and say, okay, show me all the servers that do not have EDR, and there are so many of them. And I can say, show me all the risk that is, so these are the higher priority risk. And if I wanted to take action, if I really wanted to do incident response for these set of devices, how do I do it? So I can simply click on these three set of devices and I can say what incident response do I want to do. And when we talk about incident response, it's not just taking out of the network. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's also talking about how I take an action with your ticketing system or collaboration tools to expedite incident response. So these are the three services that I wanted to do, and I wanted to open a ticket for these three devices on ServiceNow. And I can simply open this ticket, or I can send this message as a Slack message. I can send this message as a Teams message. So giving that context, giving that understanding, giving that priority is very important for incident response to start out with. That is how you expedite the incident response. On top of it, we also prioritize the devices, right? When we talk about security gaps, when we talk about security events, we discover a lot of these security events. We discover how the communication patterns understand. So, for example, if I were to say my user, I wanted to look at the users in my network and I wanted to say by count, I wanted to see all the devices that are looking at it. So if I click on this particular device and I can click on this and I can click on the info of this particular device, I can simply get the asset graph of this particular user. Or this particular user, if he ever gets infected, he is infected with 5 of these devices. So I wanted to know, okay, what are those 5 devices that he is infected with? And I can click on any one device and say, okay, I want to click on this particular device, and I can look into this particular device, and I can say, okay, this is the device that's infected. I can simply click and add a policy action on top of it and say, go send a policy action for this particular device, and add an action. So action could be go modify this particular device or a block port or reassign a VLAN. It's very simple things, right? I can simplify and I can reduce the attack surface at any point of time to actually understand and say, okay, this particular device has these set of things and this is what we can. And you can also do a push deny ACL, right? This is back to our core roots of segmentation and understanding how the segmentation is done. And we can automatically actually understand the device context, understand what the device is doing in the network, and only allow it to do certain set of devices. Why is it important? This is very important when you have only limited set of devices in your network, not necessarily the same set of devices that you have, but only a limited set of devices in your network, right? Let's say you have a CT scanner that's number one, or if you have only one PLC in your network, you cannot really take it out even if it's infected. How do you make sure that it is doing what it's supposed to do without taking out from the network? So those are some of the things where all of these incident response things come into play, and these expedite some of the incident response techniques to make sure that you reduce the attack surface and you actually do a segmentation at the right place, or reassign a VLAN, make sure that you take out that particular network. So there are multiple ways you can reassign. The number one thing that you need to understand is obviously the context, and the number two is understanding the priority of the device. And that's similarly, order as a system also gives you visibility into vulnerabilities on the network. So if I look at the vulnerabilities, there are vulnerabilities in the network that are confirmed and that are coming from multiple sources. So we can say, how do you want to analyze these vulnerabilities in your network? So the vulnerabilities can be mapped at the vulnerability level, and vulnerabilities can be mapped at a device level. In this case, if I click on these vulnerabilities, I have one device that has this vulnerability, but here I have two devices that have this vulnerability. So I can simply work on these two devices, or I can simply work on this one device that has this vulnerability. So I can simply click on these 2.32K devices and I can figure out the same thing. So here, if I click on the 345K vulnerabilities, I can click and I can say, okay, make sure that you can take some actions on this particular vulnerability, or make sure that you can take actions on the devices that have this particular vulnerability. You can simply take this high risk manufacturers in my network, and I can say, okay, these are the actions that I want to take on this particular devices. I can simply click on this. I can add a policy action. I can remove. I can do whatever I want to do. And I can do all the policy actions that I was supposed to do as part of the incident response. So bottom line is, I know it's, bottom line is what we are trying to say here is having a context, having a priority, having understanding the security events in the right way will allow you to expedite the incident response and will allow you to provide all the security gaps in your network. Uh, David, I know this is a short topic. Any questions? Anything that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I think you covered one of the questions that came up, which was about AI, but you want to talk a little bit more about kind of the value that some of our customers got just having everything in one place. I know we have some CISOs in the audience that I think would find a lot of value in that.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, AI. So for us, the AI, the most important thing in AI is not to necessarily add a new set of things, right? We obviously have a query builder, which we have focused on multiple times. You can create your own set of vulnerabilities. For example, some of our customers say, okay, show me a device that has integration provider A, but doesn't have integration provider B. So you can simply look for that. Okay, I can say if it is Tanium, I can look for Tanium. But if a provider is not uh, in in CrowdStrike or in Tune, so if it has Tanium and doesn't have Intune, we can simply quick at that query. Those are some of the things that we can do. But what Order AI is doing is it's simplifying that particular set of information. So if I wanted to say, show me all security cameras at location A, this is obviously expediting the way you are looking for data. Show me all security cameras. So I can click on this and it automatically gets all the data for security cameras, and it allows me to actually add data to my database without going through a set of query language that I have to learn. And I can simply add this to a widget and I can add it to a dashboard. And next time a security camera comes in here, it automatically updates it. And we also show you an NLP query that it generated based on the query that we have given in Gen AI. So what we are trying to do over here is, at the end of the day, when you look at a data analytics product, understanding the product, understanding insights is important, but searching for the data is also very important for incident response. And we are allowing people to search for the data without learning a lot about what query language do we use, how do we create queries in the system, and we are trying to simplify the way they search for the data.
That's a great answer, Srini. So I'm going to encourage folks, if you have any other questions, feel free to throw in the Q&A. The only other one, Srini, that I'm seeing, unless other folks have one, is we talked a lot about the data, which on the one hand, we are pulling from all the different resources we are finding with our primary data sources. You touched upon a little bit about the bi-directional going back to ServiceNow as a workflow. Do you want to talk in general about how we enhance, like, a SOC or just other pieces of an enterprise infrastructure so people get more value out of this as part of incident response?
Sure. That's a very good question. Actually, I missed it. One of the things that we do is we obviously work with a lot of ITSM vendors to make sure that we can send this information to ITSM, right? For example, if I were to say open a ticket or add policy action or actually send it to ServiceNow, we have ability to send every ticket through ServiceNow or any of the other ticketing mechanisms, and we can reconcile the data. So what is important is the context that we are sending for these tickets is very important for you to mitigate this. And at the same time, you don't want to touch upon at multiple places to work on a particular ticket. You can simply look at this ticket and say, okay, this ticket is valid. I worked on this particular ticket in ServiceNow. We will automatically close the ticket in uh, in the in the order application. So it's the same thing, right? We are updating the data in ServiceNow. It's all the information that we have created, including the context that we have done, and updating the tickets and reconciling the tickets with ServiceNow or any of the CMDB systems is very important use case for us when it comes to incident response, because context is going through CMDB, context is available in the CMDB, and the tickets are worked on the ITSM platforms.
Great. And I think we have another question in the Q&A box from Chris. Does the AI keep context with the conversation when you enter in the next question?
Yeah. So it's a today it's not conversational AI, Chris. We are working on that particular technology. Today it's more of a one question at a time. It's generative AI. We are looking at conversational AI where we are trying to see if we can answer questions, and that's something that's in development right now.
The only other question that I see, but again, any other questions, throw them in the Q&A. Maybe like you could show this in the console if you want, Srini, but more of a general business question. I think somebody was asking about like the value that our customers are seeing from an incident response perspective. I think one that comes to mind is like mean time to remediate or optimizing your employees' time. Have you seen some of the value that people get from a business perspective working with our customers?
Yeah, we have seen, right, again, because the context is available, because of the availability of all of the information that we spoke about in the initial stages, we have seen the mean time of resolution reduced by 70% for certain tickets if the information is not available. And we have seen the mean time reduce in general for the certain set of events because of the information that's available within the system and because of the prioritization and the business criticality that we have assigned to the devices, right? Every device will have a business criticality based on where that device is and what that device is. And that is very important to understand the business criticality and understand the severity of an event and understand the context of the event to actually go mitigate the risk.
That's great. I don't think I see any other questions. So I think on that note, Srini, maybe we can wrap it up. I think we've already blazed through the Q&A sections. I'm just going to show really quick this slide here, which is, again, just a reminder that there are additional resources in your box on the top right. All the other ones we've discussed, we obviously talked about incident response, but we talked about just how we get all the intelligence in our console, security and coverage gaps, fault management. And then this one obviously will be on demand afterwards. And I also added in a blog about incident response that we put together that details some of the stuff that we discussed today. So on that note, thank you guys for joining. Srini, thanks again. You're always amazing on these demos. Thanks for helping out here. So yeah, we'll wrap it up here. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.